Everyone, this is David from UCM Media, and I'm here with Patti Lucia. And today we are going to be doing a little bit of a recap of how 2021 ran. Some people say that 2021 was just another long 2020, right? There's even a Netflix documentary, a sort of comedy documentary on the whole 20. I think it was called Death to 2021. All right, and it's actually quite funny. So Patty and I are going to be discussing a whole bunch of stuff today. We're going to be going subject by subject, but the first thing we are going to do is introduce who we are. You guys know me from the shows of Andrew. Patti Lucia is a podcaster. She's part of our UCM family. We're absolutely thrilled to have her, but I'm going to let Patty introduce herself. So, Patty, tell us about everything, your book, and everything else that you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much, David. It's always so nice to be with you. So I'm a high school English teacher here in the United States in the South, and I am an author. So I've put out 2 books, and the last one I just put out is a cookbook with stories. Because I had taken 10 years off from teaching to run my own cafe. And so my second book is a collection of cafe stories and recipes. So I put out 2 books. I'm also a podcaster because, I mean, David, you and I share such a love of words and language and literature.
Mhm.
And so I kind of wanted to bring that into my podcast, you know. So the podcast is called Story Bridge with Patti Lucia, and it's about the power of story, the power of words. And, in 2021 was my first year. So I've been kind of learning as I go and working out the kinks of, being a new podcaster. And it's been a lot of fun. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I do. Yeah.
Oh, we're going to get into a lot of stuff. For those of you who want to find Patty's podcast, you can download our app. It's the UCM network. The podcast has been embedded into the app along with quizzes and a whole bunch of resources. We basically duplicated everything you would have on your phone, and we pretty much put it into the app. For those of you who would like to watch this in post, what we are doing is we are putting it on our video site. So you guys could just look up on the video site. It will be a featured video as soon as it goes up. This year, we're going to be very active. So we're going to be bringing people from all over the world. We're going to have an economics professor from Africa tell us about, because when you want to learn economics, you need to go to certain countries, first of all. We're going to be discussing the state of our metaphysical community, our esoteric community. We're going to be bringing a whole bunch of resources to you. But Patty, we are going to get into it right now. So the first thing that we are going to be talking about in retrospect in 2021 was the use of information to divide people. Okay, so Andrew and I discussed this on a broadcast we did recently. And
the Futurist show.
The Futurist show, where we were talking about how 2022 is going to develop. But 2021, if it is any indicator, that information war will continue.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you a little bit of a background about Patty and myself. Both Patty and myself are used to be English teacher. I used to be an English teacher. Okay, let it not get out too, but I used to be an English teacher. My first degree was in English literature and philosophy. And so the power of words is something that cannot be understated. So what we've had in 2021 is that you have people drawing lines of division very deeply into the sand. And so on, you're either on one side of the sand or the other side of the sand, and there is no center anymore. So the first thing I want to actually tackle is the gender divide. How's it working for you?
Mm, wow. Well, I'm still a woman, though. Am I allowed to say that anymore? Well, I'm not sure.
I'm actually not quite sure, but but
I'm not sure. I saw in a major, I think it was Lancet medical journal,
Mhm.
that the new term, or an approved term for women now, is bodies with vaginas. Yeah. So I guess that's what according to them, that's what I am. That's not ever going to be a term I use. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where it's gone. And this is a top medical journal, internationally. So that's kind of what we're up against.
here is
Yeah.
my,
So
this is my problem with this kind of stuff. It's fine for language to evolve, but we're
mm,
not seeing an evolution of language. We're seeing a forced evolution of language.
absolutely. It is so agenda driven. And for me, it's obvious when you have this kind of forced, it's like, let's say a forced evolution, something that, is really pounded in, and or kind of injected into
Hmm.
different places. We see this in
Hmm.
education, and we see it in different places. That, and then there are laws created almost immediately to protect these changes. Then you have to sit back and say, what's the agenda? What's pushing this so hard? Because
Hmm.
it is interfering with the natural evolution of language. If you study language, you know that language has evolved over the millennia, and it evolves naturally. And there are reasons why, immigrations, one culture influencing another culture, that kind of melding of words. It's actually, language is kind of a beautiful dance in a way, mostly though, except for when language is influenced, I guess, by conquerors. It's
Correct.
not so beautiful.
And
But
this is a kind of conquest as well. And I will explain
mm,
what I mean by that. Nothing is safe from political agenda. Okay,
mhm,
nothing is safe. Now, you may have your opinions about gender issues. You may have your opinions about the vaccine issues. You may have your opinions about what else is there to fight about in
mhm,
2021, 2022. You may have your opinions about a lot of things.
mhm.
But if you don't
Politics,
have a
political.
common ground where you could actually speak to each other, common language, when there is no communication, there is only anarchy. And I
Mhm,
think this is also part of the agenda. So let's face it, Patty, you and I are at a certain age bracket. We are not going to adopt a whole new bunch of words to fit anybody's agenda. One
mhm,
of my worst and most hated words is the concept of trigger. I can't use that
mhm,
word anymore without
mhm,
feeling like somebody stuck an ice pick in my skull. As I
mhm,
said to you yesterday, the concept of the word trigger suggests that I have a gun, but someone else is pulling my trigger.
mhm,
So I am the gun owner. It is my responsibility to offload that gun from ammunition, of its
mhm,
ammunition, and store that gun safely away.
mhm, mhm,
It is irresponsible of me to walk around with a gun and talking about people are triggering me.
mhm,
If you are
mhm,
triggered, that is a whole bunch of your problem. It's not anyone else's problem but your problem. That's how it used to be. But and that word used to mean annoy, right? That's what they mean. You're
yeah,
annoying me.
no, or offend. I think it evolved very rapidly
So it
from
used to be
annoy
it
to
used to be
offend
annoy,
to
now it's
trigger,
offend. Annoy, offend.
and then trigger.
Yes,
Yeah.
but the truth of the matter is you could be offended by anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the point. That's the point of this entire thing, narrowing down the places where people can disagree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have met a lot of people who talk about they're really triggered by this or they're triggered by that. And I'm like, that's a whole bunch of your problem. That's
Hmm.
not our problem. And so that word has become like one of my worst words in 2020 and
Yeah.
2021.
Yeah,
Okay?
and it's just kind of overused and overused, and it just becomes, it becomes, there's this way that, it just gets normalized, and you're expected to use this word. Now this is a normal, it's part of, everyday language. And what people underestimate is when you normalize words like that, you are changing the way people think.
Yes.
You're impacting the way people feel, and ultimately you are affecting their behavior, because that's really what happens. Like, you want to, you let's face it, people who want to, who have wanted to say, um, uh, subjugate a whole group of people. They begin by changing the language with, which is used to talk about those people, to write about those people. In Nazi Germany, the Jews became cockroaches. In Rwanda, you had, a whole groups of people were
Hmm.
related to as vermin. And so, what do we do with cockroaches? What do we do with vermin? Well, ultimately, you get rid of them, you exterminate them. So, and so people's language
Hmm.
changes, and then their thoughts begin to change, their behavior begins to change, and suddenly, and then you see this evolution. People say, how did that happen? How did that happen?
You mean, how did I
Well,
end up on the floor of Walmart fighting over toilet paper? How did I end up going
yeah.
next door to my
How did
neighbor's
I?
house who has lived near to me for the last 20 years and shooting him or shooting her because they had the wrong message in their front yard? These are the things which
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what I have seen with regard to the media agencies, and this is the reason why UCM exists, is that there is a deliberate, and I mean a deliberate attempt to divide people because of
Mm-hmm.
ratings, right? Actually, at this point, I want to show the audience a news report which just came out. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen. So
Mm-hmm.
this lady here is Frances Hogan, and she just outed Facebook last year. And I'm going to just play a little bit of it so that our audience could hear what we're talking about here. For you. My name is Frances Haugen. I used to work at Facebook. I joined Facebook because I think Facebook has the potential to bring out the best in us. But I'm here today because I believe Facebook's products harm children, stoke division, and weaken our democracy. The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people. Congressional action is needed. They won't solve this crisis without your help. Yesterday, we saw Facebook get taken off the internet. You hearing this, Patty? I don't know why
Yeah.
it went down, but I know that for more than 5 hours, Facebook wasn't used to deepen divides, destabilize democracies, and make young girls and women feel bad about their bodies. It also means that millions of small businesses weren't able to reach potential customers, and countless photos of new babies weren't joyously celebrated by family and friends around the world. I believe in the potential of Facebook. We can have. So this lady here is
Mm.
outing Facebook. She's an employee at Facebook. And in her integrity, she came out and she leaked documents. Well, I'm guessing that the upper echelons of Facebook are pretty upset with this lady. But what she did was do us a huge service by putting into writing and on paper and delivering documents for things that we already know. Now, I will
Mm.
never be able to excuse Facebook because I have seen what big tech companies are doing to society. I have seen it. But in our own words, you want to say anything about this study before we continue here?
Yeah. So the only thing, and maybe it's my cynicism, but I also looked at this and said, okay, is this also part of an agenda?
Mm-hmm.
I also looked at it and said, all right, so she is, what's the solution? She's asking Congress to take action, and what would that be? So is she saying the only solution to this is more censorship? So I'm kind of I'm a little
Mm-hmm.
I know that on the one hand, yeah, she basically told us what we already know, and on the other hand, did this open the door for solutions that
Mm-hmm.
may involve more or less, well, less, freedom of speech. It's also really interesting that the focus is on how we're harming
Mm-hmm.
children, but no, but there isn't anything, on Facebook in which someone says we're not going to support you supposedly protecting children in other ways. So I see sometimes the hypocrisy in this. It's like, you really want to protect children, you really do. Okay, well then put all of that money where your mouth is. Facebook,
Correct.
Instagram, and whatever. And I mean, look, since the pandemic, for instance, suicide girls, teenage girls are killing themselves 51 times more than they were before. And
I
what is this about? What are you doing about that, Facebook or Congress? What are you doing about that?
you know
So that you know what I'm saying?
everybody that I've spoken to in this pandemic has lost someone. Okay,
Yeah, from suicide.
some suicide from a whole bunch of
Mm-hmm.
a host of other things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have lost people in the COVID pandemic. A lot of people have lost
Mm-hmm.
people through suicide. But one thing is for certain, that no one is untouched. There's no one that I've spoken to that hasn't been touched in some way, somehow, by all of this that has gone on between 2020 and 2021. And
Mm-hmm.
so let's just listen to a little bit more of this, what this lady
Sure.
has to say.
Social media we enjoy that connects us without tearing our democracy apart, our democracy, putting our children in danger, and sowing ethnic violence around the world. We can do better. I have worked as a product manager at large tech companies since 2006, including Google, Pinterest, Yelp, and Facebook. My job has largely focused on algorithmic products like Google Plus Search and recommendation systems like the one that powers the Facebook newsfeed. Having worked on 4 different types of social networks, I understand how complex and nuanced these problems are. However, the choices being made inside of Facebook are disastrous for our children, for our public safety, for our privacy, and for our democracy. And that is why we must demand Facebook make changes. During my time at Facebook, first working as the lead product manager for civic misinformation, and later on counter-espionage, I saw Facebook repeatedly encounter conflicts between its own profits and our safety. Facebook consistently resolved these conflicts in favor of its own profits. The result has been more division, more harm, more lies, more threats, and more combat.
Okay, that was some damning evidence right there, right? Especially from an employee. That would have really hurt Facebook. Do I believe that Facebook made decisions in favor of its own profits over public safety? Absolutely. Absolutely, I believe that.
Well,
Okay,
what she's saying, notice how she focused on her work has been on disinformation, counter,
correct. Civic
all of the
misinformation,
civic.
correct.
All right, so she's also a project manager, so I'm gonna continue to be devil's advocate.
Oh, sure, sure.
I want to know. I want to know what Facebook is going to do about the damaging effects of how they have deliberately created this and designed this to be addictive. They want people scrolling, 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 so they can ultimately sell them ads. And they are still data mining. So by the time our children are 20 years old, there are reams and reams and reams of data that can be used by AI to predict how they're going to vote, how they're going to live, what kind of decisions they're going to make, and sell them stuff. And also, at some point, possibly be so attuned to what they're going to do, because we're all so predictable, I guess, that
We are.
they they
Some of us
can
are.
they can influence their behavior because they know so much data. These big tech companies, data has literally become the new god. It's omniscient, it knows how we think, it knows what we do, and yet it is a big mystery to us. We don't really know what it's doing with all that data, or why, or what its intentions are, but boy, does it know a hell of a lot about us.
Yes. And if you own a cell phone, if you own anything
Mm-hmm.
that is electronic, it's an information collector. Now, here's the
Absolutely.
thing about it. There is no living without these devices. You want to fill out your taxes and you want to do it online. If you're not walking into that tax office with pieces of paper, you're going to do it online, which means you're going to have to use a browser. You're going to have to use Chrome. You have to use
Mm-hmm.
Safari, Internet Explorer. There is no escaping it. A lot of people speak to me and tell me, "Oh, I don't deal with all of that. I don't deal with all of that tech information acquiring stuff. I don't have any Google in my house. I don't." Listen to me. From the time you fill out your taxes, from the time
Mm-hmm.
you file for benefits online, you're already given out information. There is no escaping it anymore unless you're living on a rock in the middle of the sea away
Right.
from cellular coverage.
Yeah,
So,
there's only so much we can do. I mean, I think we can be more careful about the apps we download on our phones, because those apps have access to everything. They can even take pictures of us, they can record us. And, I mean, if an app is free, the reason why it's free is because you're the product. They're selling you. You're the product.
correct.
In other words,
Very
they're
good point,
they're
Patty.
mining your data and they're selling it to someone. So
So
yeah, we're
I
gonna
have
be
a little bit
careful.
of a background in this,
Yeah,
and
I
so
know you do.
I have a little bit of a background in this. So I'm going to just give the real information here, and it's not good. It's really not good. So the first thing I want to say is that as a data scientist, I can pretty much tell you that when you program anything or whether you code anything, it has a life of its own. Google doesn't need all that information. So when you go into data sciences, there are little grades that you go through. There are four of them.
Mhm.
So you come in and you just data mining. So I build a program. It asks you questions like, what's your name? Where do you live? Above them are the data engineers. The data engineers, what they do is that they take the information from the data miners and they sort it into nice, neat little profiles. So I know that everybody named Patty who lives in Florida might like a certain kind of chocolate or bread, as the
Mhm.
case may be. Okay? You might have fennel in it. I don't know. Then above them are the data scientists. The data scientists, what they do is take the information that has been neatly sorted and create programs that can interface, interact, and make predictive models based on the information.
Now, David,
So,
on that level, on
but
that
wait, there's another
level,
level. Tell me,
oh, I was
good?
going to say, is this where AI comes in, or does
No,
AI
it
come in
isn't.
on the
It
next?
isn't. They make predictive models. With the
Okay.
predictive models, I can pretty much guess where you're going to be shopping next month.
Hmm. Hmm.
I will explain how that works. You have a tracking device on you right now. It is called your cell phone. For those of you who have Android phones, you'll probably be very disconcerted that you turn off location services. But when you come from Macy's or wherever you come from, it says, "So how was Macy's?" All right. It says so on your little
Hmm.
notification. And Apple is not much better. It's actually worse because at least with Google, it's upfronted in your face.
Hmm.
Okay. So you might interact with that notification. You might say it was great, there's parking and so on, because you think you're helping other people, right?
Hmm.
And so you give this information to Google, and the data scientists has an algorithm of your life. Okay.
Mhm.
So let me show you how dangerous this is. If I was an assassin, as an example, what I need from you, right? We both read lots of books, right?
Mhm.
What I need from you in order to interrupt your life and end it is a pattern of behavior. Okay. And everybody has patterns. Everybody does. There's lots of
Yeah.
people who out there who are, I'm so spiritual, I don't have a pattern. No, your spirituality is your pattern.
Is your pattern, yeah.
So a lot of people, they have patterns. And so that AI can tell you that 2 months from now, when there is a sale on, I don't know, fennel bread, I know where you're going to be. I know exactly where you're going to be.
Mm,
You're going to be at that sale.
mm.
And I know you're going to be at that sale because I'm going to push it to your phone.
Yeah.
And once it's pushed to your phone and you buy this funnel bread, now I know everything there is to know about the internal workings of you.
That's
So
right.
everything is digital. I was talking about a fourth layer of data people, and these are called the machine learning scientists.
Mhm.
Machine learning scientists teach machines how to learn. Machine learning.
Mhm.
So, in machine learning, Google is a prime example. The machine now creates ways of making its own predictive models. So it used to be that back in whenever we were, people had to feel into the weather and guess the weather. We are
Mhm.
now the weather. We know Google knows what you're going to do. Google
Mhm.
knows how you feel.
Mhm.
Okay? So you can't escape those things. Google also knows the language that it will take to get through to you. I want to segue here, right? Because
Mhm.
yesterday we were talking
Yeah.
about copy. Because at the end of this month, we're going to be hosting business seminars. And one of the main things that I get in terms of requests from clients, from people who own businesses, is I don't know how to write copy.
Uh,
Okay? But let me explain to you the power of words. And Patty made a very interesting point. I want her to actually go into that with us. There's a reason why we say spelling. Okay,
mm. Oh yeah.
Patty, talk
Yeah.
to us about about the concept of language and
Well,
how it is used.
well, in the history of history, right? His story, written history. Um, the most of the population has not really known how to read and write. The reading and writing was kind of kept to the elites, right? The elite, the monks or the elite
Mhm.
in a religion or the elite people, the elite class in a society. And it really wasn't until, say, 600 years ago that folks started, like the common people, started to get into reading and writing, or when they were allowed to read and write, and that still wasn't everybody. And in during this process, I mean, it was people believed that the written word was so powerful. They did believe that it could cast spells, and so the act of putting letters together to form words
Mhm.
was called spelling, because they believed that it was literally that powerful. So that's why spelling is called spelling, and honestly, that's why cursing is called cursing, because it's, the power of words. So people really believed that,
Mhm.
words can curse, and words can cast spells. And, we're living in a time when language has been so manipulated that we are collectively living under a spell that has been cast by the manipulation of our collective languaging, in a way.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I think, but we have not we our awareness of those kinds of things has kind of fallen away, over the centuries, and so we're blindsided by it now. To be honest with you, 500 years ago, I'm not so sure how blindsided people would have been by the manipulation of language, because they were so utterly like in awe of it, in awe of the power of words.
Mhm.
So it's kind of interesting. We've taken it for granted, and I think that it's that ignorance on our part is hurting us.
So I'm going to show another video to our users right now. Play this little YouTube video right here.
More femme doesn't mean that I'm any less they them.
You know what, that thing where you're eating a meal, but you're not really eating a meal, you're just kind of picking at food on the counter. My family and I were doing that one night, and I just kind of looked at them and said, hey guys, I'm non-binary. I don't have a gender.
In my opinion, gender is a universe. It is a broad spectrum of planets and stars and sky that truly cannot be contained into a binary.
My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and that's a non-negotiable. And they were all kind of like, okay.
I think one of the main reasons pronouns are so important is because, other than our name, it's one of the main ways that people identify and call us.
My pronouns are personally very important to me. Growing up, enculturated into kind of a system that really subscribes to toxic masculinity, I was always uncomfortable with being called dude, what's up, man. I was so bad at dapping people up, like, how like guys like do that whole like that.
You're
thing.
still with us,
I
Patty?
was so bad at that,
Yeah.
and it just like I felt very alienated every time someone would do that to me.
So when someone identifies with a pronoun, they're essentially taking their little piece of that broad universe and identifying with that. And so in using their correct pronouns, we're validating that, yes, you are right in your identity, and you are.
We're going to get into this.
Okay.
The first thing I want to say, and let me just get back to the first thing I want to say is there seems to be a common denominator among all the individuals who were interviewed in that video that we just saw. They seem to be of a certain age group. How many gender pronouns are there? Do you know?
There are like 72 now or something, maybe more. It's growing.
It's growing.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's growing.
I have mixed feelings about this construct. I used to be, I should say, more left of center at some point in time.
Mhm.
And I have become firmly back in the center.
Mhm.
And the reason why that is because there's a part of me that will always try and open my heart to understanding other people. It is not something that I choose to do because it's a nice thing to do. It's just the way that I am. There are, however, certain places that the mind doesn't necessarily readily want to go. So as an example, if I see a certain group of people lashing out at people from another generation, specifically because they don't understand, then I become suspicious of whatever movement.
Mhm.
One of the biggest problems we had in 2020 and 2021 is the concept of cancel culture.
Mhm.
This is a train that I cannot get on board.
Mhm.
The reason why I can't get on board is the energy that comes with cancel culture is
Oh.
usually a horrible energy.
It's absolutely.
And inside my spirit, I choose not to get into cancel culture. And I'll tell you why. Cancel culture went after businesses. They went after Dave Chappelle,
Mm-hmm. I
They
love
went-
Dave Chappelle.
right?
I love that guy.
Right. They went after Dave Chappelle. They went after a
Mhm.
whole bunch of people. I think it is nonsense. And I'll tell you why that is. Let me explain something to you. When you have a business
Mhm.
and you have built this business from scratch, cancel culture says, let's cancel all the millionaires and billionaires. Okay, I could see your point of view. There are a lot of billionaires and billionaires that are absolute idiots. Okay,
Mhm.
they're selfish, they're
Have
evil.
they, can I just ask, have they canceled Bezos? Have they canceled
No,
Bill
they're
Gates?
ineffectual.
Have they canceled,
They can't do that. They know they can't because the same
you know,
cancel culture orders from
yeah,
Bezos, right?
right. I haven't even heard them asking to do that. Like I haven't even heard, but I mean, if that's
But what they're
the
trying
case,
to
is
what they're trying to say is that all billionaires, by definition, are bad people. So they have coined the phrase "eat the rich." I cannot get on board with this concept because let me
Mhm,
explain to you. When you have a business, it may be a small business in a little place, but you're nurturing that business and they don't see the 24
mhm.
hour, the burning the midnight
That's
oil
right.
that you stayed up and you nurtured that business, the
Mhm,
sacrifices that you had to make. Okay?
mhm.
So if it is someone annoys you one day and you say something that is out of place, and then 20 years later they want to deconstruct your whole work,
Yeah.
your whole body of work, all the sacrifices, and they want to destroy what it is that you were built for, and comment that you've made 20 years ago. No, I'm sorry, that is spite. And the thing about it is that the
Mhm,
people that are usually involved in cancel culture, they never spent that amount of effort, time, energy,
mhm.
right?
In creating things in their own life.
So they you could sit at home in your mother's basement and get all upset
Mhm,
that
mhm,
somebody said something you didn't like years ago.
mhm.
Patty, you and I grew up in a time when we understood that there are going to be people who are going to say things that we don't like.
Oh yeah.
We understood this concept. We didn't
Mm,
feel entitled to say, you can't say this to me because it's not
mhm,
allowed. I have
mhm.
never said that to anybody in my life. But this is what is happening right now. And there's this huge push to make this part of the social discussion. So the first thing I want to talk about is trigger warning for those of you who are triggered by this discussion. You better buckle up
Yeah.
because this discussion is going to get a
Yeah.
little bit hairy.
Hit the little red button in the corner.
Yeah, buckle up because this discussion is going to get a little bit hairy. Really, it is.
Mm,
Okay. All right. So, what I want to discuss first of all is why is it that discourse, meaning you have an opinion, Patty, I have an opinion,
mhm,
why has
mhm.
discourse devolved into this sort of let me shout louder than the other person that I am talking to? Please
Mhm,
explain. Please explain it to me.
mhm. Yeah, because that is really what it has come to. It's kind of like the unraveling of any kind of sense of discourse. Um, you cancel culture stops dialogue, all dialogue in its tracks, which means that there is no, gone are the days when we talk about building bridges between cultures, between different ideologies, between religions, between races, between women. Gone are the days where we're taking flamethrowers to those bridges, and with cancel culture. There's no bridge building. I do not understand how we can talk about unity and peace in this world and in a better world if this is the energy that we are bringing, that we refuse to build bridges and have dialogue and have discourse. I don't understand how we're going to create a better world
Well,
without it.
I don't think we're going to create a better world. It used to be that when you went to university, you came out a little bit smarter. What is
Mm,
actually happening is that people are coming out dumber and dumber. And I'll explain what
mhm,
I mean by that. I suppose a simple explanation of this concept would be something like people going to university and not learning what fallacies are. So for those of you who are viewing,
mhm,
fallacies are errors in thinking. And I'm
mhm,
going to go through a few of them because if you are currently using them
mhm.
to talk to people, then you need to revise this construct. As an
Yeah,
example, let's go through a few of them. Ad
yeah.
hominem attacks. The words ad hominem means to the man, and what it means is that if Patty says to me that I don't know the sky is blue, I would say to Patty, the only reason you think that way is because you're a libtard.
Yeah.
But how does that address the argument?
or you are a white privileged woman, or you are a Karen, or you are a, whatever. Like, it's so you're talking about a responding in a personal attack.
So that's
It's
ad
a
hominem.
personal attack on the man or the woman. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
The second fallacy I want to discuss, not very, it's very subtle, is non sequitur. It means it does not follow. And what that means is, if Patty says to me, the sky is blue, so I would say to Patty, oh, the sky is blue, I guess the world is ending. It does not follow that her saying it does not follow. This is an example of a fallacy, and people do this in conversational terrorism all the time. And I call it conversational terrorism. There's an article on it that you guys really should read. I'm going to probably try to link that article to you, okay, when this is posted. Okay, it does not follow. But you see this in conversation and you see it on the news. Grown, educated people talking like this on news media, knowing, and I hope that they went to university and they learned the difference in how to use language. But let's get to the third most common
Yeah, and David,
fallacy.
it's like language and logic.
Correct. The third most common fallacy is the bombast. Patty says to me, the sky is blue. And I say, you stupid Karen, why is this guy? I don't understand. You try to offend me? I don't understand. The bombast. It uses a whole bunch of emotional charge to drown Patty's statement to me. This is horrible, disgusting stuff, guys. And it is being used.
That's a predominant. That's quite.
That's the new
common
normal
these
now.
days. Yeah, that's normal.
This
That's
is the new
normal.
normal now, and
That's the new normal.
what we're doing is we're creating this kind of new normal where no conversation is possible. No
Now,
conversation is going.
is there a fourth?
Yes, there is a fourth. There is a fourth. Head them off at the pass.
Is there like a more Latin-y name for that?
No, I know you like the Latin, but let's just keep it. Let's just keep it basic.
Okay.
It's like head them off at the pass. I'll explain to you what that looks like. Patty says the sky is blue, and she's trying to make a point that says the sky is blue because of the reflection of the water. But I'm not going to let Patty make that point. What I'm going to do is cut across Patty, interrupt, and say, when she says the sky is blue, I said, and I'm going to say something like, so just because the sky is blue, you think the water is causing it? And Patty's going to be like, oh. Head them off at the pass, at the interrupt, basically.
And so basically, and what you're doing is you're kind of cutting off what they were going to say at the knees. Like you're already disparaging
Correct.
their logic before they even say it.
Before they even make the point. Listen, I know a lot of esoteric people. I know a lot of spiritual, esoteric, healing science people who do not know how proper rules of argumentation, and they won't stand up to scrutiny. So they actually have to sequester themselves into small spaces in the internet where real people can't get a hold of them. So they go into, I'm going to say it, safe spaces, because they can't face the reality because they never learned how to argue. So what you have is a situation where if I can't do the bombast, the ad hominem attack, non sequitur attack, and the head them off at the pass attack, I don't have anything else going for me.
Right.
I can't argue.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we say argue, we don't mean rah rah. We mean literally have an intelligent,
Conversation.
logical discourse. It's just, yes, it's just a discourse. Now, what you were saying before about their little bubble, I will say that this is another area where Facebook has kind of set people up
Mm.
in this situation in their own little echo chambers, because now that they have your algorithms and everything, so what comes up in your feed are just other people who agree with you, or news items and things like that that are aligned with your perspective. So people are finding themselves in their own echo chambers, and therefore they really don't know how to have regular discourse. And then when they are out in other places, or they go to other, I don't know, sites,
They get triggered.
they get triggered. They get triggered, and they do one of the four things you just mentioned, because they don't know how to have a discourse.
Let me explain to you. The safe spaces used to be, back in the day when I was growing up, a comfort curve.
Mm,
If it is that I'm in a space where everybody agrees with me, the reason why we're doing these webinars is because I'm bringing people on who may have a different opinion from me. Okay?
mhm.
And so you have to understand that you won't always get someone who will agree with you.
Mm.
You won't always get someone that will agree with you. But if you stay in your safe spaces and you do not engage or expose yourself to opposite opinions, then you never learn and you never grow.
Well, in David, do you remember when we used? I love that that you said comfort curve, because this is what it made me think of. Do you remember? Have and I'm sure that you, at least once in your life, you were encouraged to get out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
Right? Get out of your comfort zone. Why? Because when you're out of your comfort zone, there's the opportunity for growth, mentally, emotionally, and in all kinds of ways. Get out of your comfort zone. And I think that now folks they're almost caged in their comfort zone. They've got this little electrical fence around their comfort zone, and the little one of those little collars that goes out there as soon as and so they never leave the yard. They
No, they're
never
not.
leave the
They're not going
yard.
to leave the yard, Patty. They're just not going to leave the yard. Okay, and I know this because I belong to a lot of Facebook groups, and I see the comfort curve. And then I thought, why don't I do a show where I bring people on and actually have them debate each other in a civil manner?
Mm,
So I thought to myself, I'm going to get the most esoteric person that I know. I'm going to bring that person on, and that person is going to debate a canonical priest from, I don't know, Anglican or Catholic priest. And then people can see what discourse looks like
yeah.
when it's not tear down discourse,
Right.
right? But the thing about it is that I would need to find an esoteric person who would be willing to put themselves on the line. So I guess I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to
Mhm.
put myself on the line and debate people and bring people on that are outside the paradigm. Because one thing is very important. You don't grow in your own space. You grow in other spaces. Okay?
Absolutely.
You grow in other spaces. You need to meet people, you need to have discussions, and you need
Mhm.
to have trigger control along with everything else. Put your guns
Mhm.
away, put your emotional baggage away,
Mhm.
and you need to allow these people's argument to fly through you, not with the intention of disparaging their argument, but from
Mhm.
getting information from them that can be useful. Let
Mhm.
me show you how this is a problem. If I Ask any, I have been talking to a lot of people. I ask Reiki professionals, how does Reiki work?
Okay, fair question.
And the answer is, well, it's an energy that's all around us. It's, I'm a Reiki, we're both into Reiki. Both of us are. It's an energy that's all around us, and it's like the chi that's in the air, and it's channeled through your body, and it knows where to go. It has an intelligence about it. I'm like, if I took you to the Ministry of Education or the
Mhm.
education department as it is in the US, and I say to the education department that is in the US, I need to register this course. Is this what you're going to say to them?
Mhm.
Do you see the problem? Do you see the problem?
Mhm. Yes.
So what happened was that the individual that I was talking to, the Reiki master that I was talking to, now, well, how would you say it, David? I would say I would go and do my research. I will probably go look at the work of Dr. Emoto. I
Nice.
would probably bring up the construct of Democritus. And when I was challenged, I will tell them that, did you know that the father of modern medicine was a metaphysician? Hippocrates was a metaphysician. Pythagoras was a metaphysician. These are facts. These are facts. How many Freemasons have made inventions that you are using every day? These people were metaphysicians. So before you judge what it is that I have to tell you, please understand that fact, first of all. Okay?
Mhm.
So I will explain to them that the atomic nature of man is affected by the force of will. That is not something
Absolutely.
that I need to prove anymore. It is something that we know for sure. Physics knows that. Electrons behave differently when you're observing them. Okay?
Quantum physics.
So
Absolutely.
if that is the case, then a very solid case can be made for how Reiki works and why it works.
I
But
mean, you can get down to the fact that the human body is a certain percentage of water, and so just based on those experiments in terms of how water, which is much more mysterious than most people think of it.
operative
I
word there being mysterious,
It,
mysterio.
it is, yeah. So, but Emoto was definitely on to something there, and there have been other people since him that have kind of continued that study. But so if it's and there's actually a branch of and I apologize, I don't know the name of it, but there's actually a branch of the United States government in which the scientists study um, the effects of human intention on molecular structure.
That is correct.
Yes, I just don't remember. Do you know the name of it? There's
No,
a
I
name.
don't, but I do know that these experiments were done in Berkeley as well,
Yes, so they
in
they are
Berkeley
studying, and
University. So
it's a real thing. Yeah.
these are the kinds of things that you want to explore when it is that you're discussing Reiki to someone who is
Mm-hmm.
not inside your little comfort space, your little safe
Mm-hmm.
space.
Mm-hmm.
Present yourself in a way that they understand what you're talking to. But here's the other part of language and people that you have to take into consideration. They're arrogant. Why do I even need to do that? I know it works. I believe it works. And that's all that I need to do. Let me ask you a question. When the Jehovah's Witness appears at your doorstep
Mm-hmm.
and you say to the Jehovah's Witness, how could this be true? And the Jehovah's Witness says, we know it can be true because it's in the Bible
Mm-hmm.
and it's God's word. How
You
is that
know,
different from when it is an esoteric person says, I don't need to learn all this stuff. I just know it in my bones. I feel it in my body,
it's
and
so
that is
arrogant.
so.
Okay, you know what? You know what? You've made me think of one of the greatest teachers ever. And he had his hands full, and that was Yeshua, Jesus, right?
Mhm.
So Jesus is walking around. He's got he's like this high dimensional being and whatever. He's got all these concepts and he's looking around and he's like, I can imagine, how do I reach these people? How do I reach these people? And, and you think about how he taught and he, what made his teaching so effective, he knew that he had to teach in parables that they would understand, in concepts that reached them and that touched them and that they could wrap their minds around at that time. He was teaching high concepts, but in a way that reached the people he was talking to. And so, if people if there are spiritual practices and metaphysical folks, and let's face it, when we get on the other side of this, we're going to need as many healers as possible in all
Is not
different
the
kinds of
truth.
practice, right? And so we can't have healers going out there saying it works because
I
I
believe
feel
it.
it. Yeah, I believe,
You remember
have
the
to.
the white lighter phase that people went through? I bathe you in white light. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I keep saying this over and over again. Mm. If you are across the room bathing me in white light against my will, you have not obtained consent to bathe me in your white light. You might be seeing white light. What I'm seeing is a dark cloud of red and black energy descending on me.
Mm-hmm.
So please gain the consent first. Okay,
Mhm.
please. Because
Mhm.
intent is very,
Yeah.
very important.
And we have to honor people's free will.
Oh,
That's
yes,
that's like
there is
that's
that.
like spirituality 101, isn't it? I don't get it, but that really should be spirituality 101, is you honor people's free will. And this is something that practitioners also need to
Healers,
learn.
coaches.
Coaches need to learn how to communicate what it is they're doing and how it can help people, who are now damaged by everything that's gone on in our world, and know that they have to honor people's free will. And otherwise, you're going to have a bunch of healers out there doing more damage than good.
We already have a bunch of healers out there doing more damage
Doing
than
more
good.
damage than good. What I'm saying though is like, people are going to be more vulnerable.
This is true.
People are already, like, think about how much this is affecting people and how much more vulnerable people will be because of the damage of all of what's been happening, and what they're having to put in their bodies, or what they're having to put on their faces, or the conditions that they have to live in, or the fact that they're disconnected from their families because of the travel restrictions, and on and on and on. And so all of the trauma, the trauma from that, I think, is all of what's been happening is going to make people more vulnerable and in more need of folks like that. And so I think healers have to get on their game.
They absolutely do have to get on the game. Honestly speaking, Patty, there's not too much I can say with regard to that. I think a lot of things have spun out of control, honestly.
Mm.
I think that in between big tech, the media, false light, I like to call it, in terms of healers and white lighters and so on. And it's like a whole soup of dysfunction. As I said to you yesterday when we were having our pre-meeting for this, we're living in a dystopia. Isaac Asimov could not come up with a better novel than what we're living in. When I was growing up, the things that I've seen in the last 2 years, I never thought I would ever see this stuff, ever. Okay? I speak to a bunch of mediums and psychics and professional spiritual people, and I ask all of them, because some of them are precognitive, did you see this coming? And they said, hell no, we didn't. In all honesty, they didn't see it coming. Nobody saw this coming. And I'm like, that kind of means that it's not that natural, isn't it? Right? And they said it doesn't appear to be that way. Because, you got to be careful the way you speak on social media now. I need to put a plug in here, which is why we have our own video site on our own server, so we can say whatever we want here. Okay?
Mhm.
And YouTube and Facebook can take down whatever they want to take down. It really doesn't matter
Right.
to me because I'm just going to put that on my own server. For those of you who don't know where the server is, the link will be in the description. It's our own video server. But with regard to what we're talking about here, what I want to emphasize a lot of, for those of you who are listening, is that between these groups, we are living in a dystopia, and you have to be careful. You have to be careful to guard your thoughts. There are some of
Mhm.
you that walk around your house with a TV on 24 hours a day because you can't
Mm.
stand the silence.
Mm.
I highly suggest that you put on, I don't know, some music, something
Mm.
uplifting, as opposed to listening to CNN or MSNBC or Fox News in the background. It doesn't matter whether they're
Mm.
on the right or left, they're poisoning
Mm.
you slowly.
Or they could sit with silence for a bit, practice. If they have to have some kind of sound all the time, then try silence for 15 minutes. Because, it's silence in itself is healing.
It
It,
is.
it'll bring up stuff, but that's the point.
Yes, because when you come out at the other end, you're a bit better and more viable human being
Mhm.
and not a
Mhm.
drone. I see
Mhm.
people waking up and the first thing that they grab is that cell phone.
Mhm.
The first thing they grab is that cell phone, and they end up coming to coaches like myself, other coaches, and they're like, I feel really despondent and I
Mhm.
feel really down. Could it be that your body chemistry is off because you've been giving yourself adrenaline hits, endorphin hits, serotonin hits
Yeah, maybe.
arbitrarily, and the human being
Maybe.
wasn't designed for that
No.
kind of drug intake?
Yeah.
We weren't designed for that kind of drug intake. So if you are going to listen to something that builds new neurons inside your head and instead of
Mm.
destroys your brain cells and makes you
Mm.
aberrant, because you are going to find yourself at some point in time on the floor of a supermarket, Walmart, Macy's, Sears, the Sears still alive, Target. You're going to find yourself on the floor of a supermarket one day, rolling around, fighting another human being over toilet paper.
Mm.
It's going to happen. You're thinking, no, that'll never happen to me. You think the woman who was filmed on the floor fighting this woman over a roll of well, actually a bale of toilet paper. You think the woman who found herself on the floor thought in her life when she left her house, I'm gonna go down to Walmart, I'm gonna fight this chick. No, she didn't think that. If you had spoken to her in the morning, she said, no, that would never happen to me.
Yeah.
But it happened.
Yeah.
So you gotta protect your mind, and you gotta think, what are the things that are poisoning me? And the things that are poisoning you
Yes.
are anything that will drag you off center, whether it be to the man's side, the woman's side, the left of the political
Mm-hmm.
spectrum, the right of the political spectrum, right? The 30-70-72 gender pronouns, anything that is
Mm-hmm.
going to take you off center, filter it out of your life with extreme prejudice.
Mm-hmm. And people don't realize that, and I teach teenagers, so I see this a lot. Like, they don't really, I try to get them back to loving reading again, like reading a book as opposed to being, watching a screen. And you don't realize that if you are always on a screen, right, scrolling, watching TikTok videos and doing all of that, and this is kind of what you're doing, or looking at your feed, and you don't really that your eyes get used to moving in a particular direction, moving a particular way, and taking in information in a particular way, and the kind of light that's coming at them. And then you pick up a book, and it's almost like you have to retrain your eyes again to be able to read. But reading is a very different process. And you talk about something that can rewire and rebuild neurons. Reading is
Correct.
an excellent example. You're reading words, your mind is decoding, and your imagination is working.
Working.
Because as you're reading,
You
there's a
have to
little
build
film.
the
Yeah,
images in your head.
exactly. It's building images in your head. Think of all the complex processes that are going on, as you read. And so we get away from that process, and that is such a growthful and healthy process. So reading is extremely healthy. Also, writing. We kind of tap on a keyboard, but journal writing is actually really good because it's a similar process in that you're thinking and you're writing and your hand is moving, and there's all this connecting now. Your mind is connecting, your words are coming to you, your mind is connecting, and your hand is moving with it. And it's this whole process that's like I said, it's rewiring and reconnecting in really healthy ways.
And I thank Patty for that, because I'm going to out Patty right about now. Patty is developing a spiritual journaling course for you guys. In case you didn't know, she's developing a spiritual journaling course for you guys, because a lot of people think that journaling is just something you just pick up a book and just, right? Expression is a little bit off. You want to be able to journal in a way that actually brings out the essence of your stream of consciousness, right?
Absolutely. And
And
it also really, how we were talking about healers needing to get on their game. A big part of that is healers have to heal themselves. We have to practice self-reflection. We have to practice, what you would call metacognition, going deeper and deeper into our awareness about our thoughts and our emotions and our actions. Fully aware, going deeper, looking and seeing and being aware of those parts of us that still need to be healed. Healers, we're wounded too. And to the extent that we can heal ourselves, we'll be more effective healers. And so journaling is such a simple, it's free, it's a simple process of
giving
being able to
yourself
be,
therapy
yes,
as
being
opposed to paying someone
self-reflective.
else for therapy. It gives
Absolutely.
giving
And
yourself therapy.
yes, and here's another thing, David. You know how like we can measure physical changes and physical growth, but it's hard for us to assess our emotional growth or our
Yeah,
spiritual growth.
correct.
Well, if you keep a journal for a period of time, right? Let's say you do it for 6 months. How growthful is it to, when you get to the 6 month, look back now at what you wrote 6 months ago
And
and
see
be
the
able
way
to
you've
say,
changed. Yes,
yes,
growth. You've grown because
yes,
it's measurable. You can see it.
yes. It's often not measurable. We don't know how we got where we got. Do you know what we don't know. Somebody says, hey, how did that come about? How did that change come about? We don't really know how to string it together. We just know that it was a process. And then one day we woke up and we realized, wow, I don't feel that way anymore. I don't think about that in the same way. But we often just don't know how we got there. We just know that we did. Journaling makes us more aware of the process. And that's so very valuable.
Okay. All right. Well, we've come up to our time, Patty. I just want to do a few
Okay.
promos here for Patty. First of all, the first promo is that you guys need to check out Patty's book. She has actually more than one book, and she's a published author, which is why we're talking about the spiritual journaling. Um, Patty is going to be doing a spiritual journaling course for you guys. I highly recommend spiritual journaling, because then you could fire people like me as your therapist and become your own therapist. So what she's suggesting there, especially if you are someone who is into spirituality and esotericism, you absolutely need to learn the skill of journaling, and you need to learn it in a more formal way than just simply writing down thoughts. Because I've read some people's journal. I had to, because of my profession, and I see things like grocery lists in there. Yeah, I'm like, no, 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 that's not what you use journaling for. Never mind, Patty. I'm really happy that you're doing this course. Guys, I'm going to link the feed for this video on replay. It's going to be on our video site. Our video site is independent of other people's servers and so on, so there will be no downtime for those of you who want to come on as guests and so on. Just hit me up at info@universalcitizentv.com. I forgot to tell you that Patty's taking a break from social media this year because she has a lot of stuff going on. But what I can tell you is that her business page is still in existence, and you could check it out, and you could check out her website. Be sure to patronize her because this lady is doing very good work for us.
Thank you, David. Yeah, you can find out my services there. So if you want the journaling consultation, you can find it there. My books, everything's on the website.
And for those of you who have websites with extremely bad copy on it, Patty's forte, Patty's strength, her major strength is the power of words. And you guys need to contact this lady. Okay, Patty, you have, well, once they get to your website, they will know how to contact you. Okay,
Yes.
guys, that's it for our broadcast, the UCM VIP. And what we're going to be doing in our next broadcast is talking about metaphysics. Patty and I will be doing a series of these broadcasts. They will be on the video site, and you guys can check us out there. Okay?
Looking forward to it. Thank you, David.
All right. Take care, Patty.